The purpose of this video is for you to watch again later. If you want to go and repeat this work by yourself, which I strongly suggest you do, because you need to see it a couple of times to really drill into it. I'm not doing a deep dive on Node.js in this class. I'm showing you just enough of a starter template so you can use it to build a web application to front end your access to your white labeled API product. So first of all, we've already made our project, right? So we went to Visual Studio Code. We have verified that we have Node available here. Everybody can type Node at the PowerShell command terminal, and they're going to see something that looks like that. So now the next thing we have to do is set up a Node.js project. Now, a couple of things to bear in mind. Node is a program, right? It was written by Ryan Dahl. It's written in a language called C++. It is a program that runs at the command line, and it gives you access to Chromium, which is the JavaScript language interpreter. I gave you a document. I posted it up in your lab, backstory of how Node.js came to be. I spent several hours putting that together, so it's quite detailed. And if you desire to have more knowledge about Node, read that. If you still want more knowledge, come and ask me. But for right now, we're going to oh yeah, I was just going to go and drop a couple of notes into your lab here. Yeah. So make a directory for your project done. Ensure that you have Node available by just typing Node in the PowerShell terminal that's built into Visual Studio Code. Next, oh yeah, this is what I was going to show you here. Node works with a library online, which is very much like GitHub. In fact, it's actually created by the same organization that created GitHub. It's called npmjs.com. So we're going to go here and get several packages. We're going to get Express, for example. Express is a Node package which lets you quickly set up a web server directly in your Node program. Why do we want a web server? Well, that's going to be what provides a front end web page for a user to go and say, you know, select a city like, I don't know, New York, and then click a button and then get the weather in New York. Once we can do that, part two is going to be we're going to RAG. We're going to retrieval augmentation generation. We're going to grab the weather report, because remember when we sent Grok, we went to Grok and we said, Grok, tell me fun things I can do in Toronto this weekend based on the weather, fun things I can do with my dog. And Grok said, well, I don't have real-time weather information, so here's stuff you can do with your dog, but I don't really know about the weather. So that's quite a common limitation. An AI model knows what you've trained it on, but you might want outside information, maybe your company's documents, maybe something else, right? Maybe some news stories or whatever, current news. So it's called RAG, Retrieval Augmentation Generation. You hook up your AI prompting to some external information, often in the form of a database. In fact, one of the things we're going to do in probably week 8 or week 9, we're going to look at something called vector databases. I know you guys have seen SQL databases. Well, vector database is actually meant for the requirements of doing AI RAG. Or there's other ways, right? We're going to a weather API, right? You could go to Google Docs, like you could hook it up to your Google Docs or something. But in all cases, you augment what prompt you're sending to your AI model with some information you pulled from another source, and then you ask the AI based on this information, answer so-and-so question. So anyway, we're going to use Express, and we're going to make a web server. We're not even getting into the AI just at this exact second. We will probably in about 20 minutes. But first, let's just have the experience of making a simple Node.js application, just so you've seen the workflow of how that goes. All right, so ensure Node is running. Yes, create a simple Node.js app using Express. Express, why can't I spell EXP? npmjs.com package, which in the next step, we will use to front end access to Grok API calls, which in the next steps. Okay, so let's do that. That sounds pretty good. Now, to make a Node app, we do the following. First of all, you have to initialize it. You have to do npm init, and that creates a package.json file. So let's go and do that. So I'm going to go to my command prompt, and I'm going to say npm init. Whoops, npm init. And it's going to ask you a bunch of questions here. Just press the enter key, accept the defaults. That's good enough for right now. And you now have a package.json. Is there anybody who does not have a package.json? Is there anybody who was not able to successfully run npm init? Now, I realize it's new stuff, right? New stuff, right? Takes a lot out of the brain cells to process. If necessary, we can go through the whole thing, then we can go through it, plus you have the video as well. I can even go through it a second time, because some people are like that, right? The first time they just need to kind of feel it, and then once they feel it and they see the outcome, then we go through it a second time and we hammer down the little details. We'll see how it goes. We'll get there. So anyway, now we've done npm init. Now, I said that we need some npmjs.com packages. So to do that, we do npm install. And once again, we have an entire 14-week class where we talk about this. I'm giving you the kind of short version. Just believe me that this is what we need to do. Have faith and confidence in me, and eventually I'll lead you to the promised land. So we're going to do npm install express and body parser. And if you want to know what those are, just go to npmjs.com and read the documentation. And we also want NodeMon. It's going to become clear in the coming minutes why we want those things. So go and do that. I'm going to document this in your lab book, so you can always just refresh your lab book and then just get the latest and greatest of what I'm doing. You can watch the video again later. I mean, if you really deeply desire to learn this, you need to sit in a room by yourself and just watch the video and just repeat it. You need to do that a bunch of times. Okay, so once you've done that, npm install express body parser and NodeMon, press enter, and it'll take a couple of seconds. Now look over here, pay attention to your file explorer. Do you see when I did that, something winked into existence, which was node modules. So your npm environment manager in your node environment here in your operating system, it reached out its hands through the network, it reached into npmjs.com, and it found the basic packages such as Express. However, each of these packages has some dependencies. So if you look at its package.json, see, that's the package JSON for Express, and those are the people who created that package. And there's the library and so on. So you see here, it has dependencies. So accepts body parser, content type, and so on. So as Express was installed, npm also installed all of those packages. But those packages also had dependencies. So it made a graph of dependencies. That's why you have so many node modules in your environment now, because all of that stuff got sucked down to support running Express. And body parser which is a package that's going to help us get form field data because user is going to be entering the city they want in a form. Anyway, so everybody should have this. And again, if you're sitting there and you're like, I'm not too sure what's going on, at the end, if anybody wants me to go through it again, we will. You can just watch the video and go through it by yourself again over the weekend or something. All right, let's carry on to our next step. Now, the next step here is we should be set up and ready to go. We're going to make a very simple program. So we're going to make a program called index.js. Why? Well, you could pretty much call it anything. But here, if you look at your package JSON, by default, your first program is going to be called index.js. You could rename it, but by convention, that's what we do. So I'm going to go here in Visual Studio Code, say File, New File, index.js. Now we're going to write a JavaScript program by ourselves. And let's write the simplest JavaScript program. We'll just say console.log hello. So make sure you save that. Now, how do you run a Node.js program? Well, you just type node, and then you type the name of the program, which is index.js, and it's running and saying hello. Is there anybody who did not get that working? We're all saying hello now? Cool. Now, we're going to make a very simple Express web server. We're going to do it as follows. In fact, let's go to npmjs.com because it has good documentation and all the stuff there. npmjs.com. Let's search for Express. And there's an example of a simple program right there. So just go and copy that right out of the documentation. Again, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about Node because I want to keep our time freed up to build AI. But basically, at the first line, we're saying import the Express package into our current program right here. And then, because I think you guys you've had Java? Yeah, yes, no? Yeah, so you're familiar now. When you put the round brackets after a class name, that is in Java, what would that be called? The constructor, exactly. Somebody said it. So we're now making, just like you do in Java, we're making an object reference to the Express package called app. That means that on app, we can call the methods that are available in the Express package. By the way, guys, just letting you know, at 10 o'clock in a couple of minutes, somebody from the office, Shauna, is just going to come and sit here for a while and just see how the class is running. Right? Not a big deal. The college does that with every class every term. So when she comes here, just, nod hello to her and then just let her do her own thing. She's just going to sit there and look around. So anyway, we are now going to go to app, which is the object reference. And we're going to call a method called get. Shh, guys, when Shauna's here, it's like when guests are over. I understand that you're small children and small children have difficulty focusing. Try and make a good showing of yourself when guests are over. Don't do chit chat. She's going to ask me, Peter, why aren't you throwing those students out of the class? And I'm like, well, I feel badly. She's going to go, Peter, that's not a good reason. If they're talking, you got to throw them out. Just don't put me in that situation. So anyway, when you're working with a web application, the two ways, and we're communicating between endpoints on the network, so your web browser and your web server can communicate by get or post. Again, don't have time to get into that. It's not a web application development course. But when we do app.get, that means that when a user comes into our server from their browser and they go to the root route, which is just the highest level of file on our website, we're going to grab, there's REQ and RES. So HTTP is a request response paradigm. So when we invoke Express, it is giving us a bunch of stuff for free. It is giving us a request object and a response object. So a request object is all the information that's coming into me as the web server, for example, what the web browser wants. And RES, the response, is the object I'm composing, which I'm going to shove back down to the requesting web browser. Now, so I'm going to do response.send. I'm going to send out hello world. And then app.listen, that starts my program running, and I'm listening on port 3000. So grab this little starter code right out of npmjs.com express documentation, and just drop that in here. And we're going to save it and run it. So save. Now, instead of saying node, we're going to say nodemon, because nodemon was one of the packages we installed. Nodemon is a little helper utility in Node, because normally if I make some changes to my server code, I would have to stop and restart my program for them to pick up. As my daughter Ashley is fond of saying, ain't nobody got time for that. So nodemon is just a little utility that works by monitoring. It listens to your node program, and as soon as it hears a change, it re-pushes the fresh server code out so it's available. So we're going to say nodemon, node monitor, nodemon, dot, backslash, and then the program name, which is index.js. Why dot backslash? Because this command terminal is PowerShell. PowerShell wants to be like Unix, like Linux. And in Linux, if you want to run a program which is in your current directory, you have to say dot backslash, meaning the program that's right here, or maybe in some other directory. So everybody got that, and I'm recording this screencast, right? So you can go and watch that. So enter. And if it all worked properly, you are now... Oh, I see. What did I do wrong here? I mean, yeah, because it's the new node modules thing. Okay, I got to go and change this here. Hang on. Okay, I'm just going to take a couple of seconds because this was the way that did work in the old version of Node, but there's some updates now here. So let me just go and... All right, guys, so we're now going to go through the exercise of getting our simple Node server up and running. And just to keep all our minds linked in and focused to what we're doing, let's go and review this. So we started out at the beginning of class. We sort of reviewed a little bit on what we're doing and how we got here. And we figured out that our main goal in this class, in this 14-week of course, is what? Let's link it in with a little bit of review. What's our high-level mental focus of what we want to do? I accept your volunteering. Go. Anybody help them out? Guys, come on, you're embarrassing me. What have we been talking about every week doing? Louder? Yeah, basically to build an AI model. And we're going to focus on a text-generating chatbot for reasons of time. There's other kinds of bots, such as video generators, image generators, and so on. So we're going to do that, and we're going to, at the beginning, we made very simple, very small-scale chatbots by ourselves, because to do anything of serious real-world complexity, you know, they said it cost about $100 million to train ChatGPT. You need huge amounts of RAM and graphical processor units. So we did in the early days, in the first couple of days of class, we used Google Colab, and we made very simple, based on Bayesian training and based on PyTorch, it could answer very simple questions. And then we realized that if we want to get anything that's real world complexity, maybe a nice project we can show off, you know, you can have something to show off to your co-op employer in the job interview, we have to amp up our game. So the next thing we did after simple Bayesian training and PyTorch, what was phase 2? Knowledge distillation. So then we started writing code. We saw how we could take a frontier model, and we've been working with DeepSeek R1 because licensing wise it's okay to do that. Some of the other models, you could do it, but the licensing doesn't really abide that. And we want to send you to work with a knowledge of the sort of legal and regulatory framework as well. So we took DeepSeek and then we did what's called knowledge distillation transfer. So we made our own model, like Peter's AI model or Ramandeep's AI model, whatever, and we used PyTorch and we sort of copied its weightings, and then we made something with sort of real world complexity. Of course, on your own laptop, you can't do that because you don't have enough RAM. But in Google Colab, right, nice tool. Google's pretty good. They give you a lot of stuff for free. So we started to create real world complexity chatbots. What was the next thing we realized we needed to do? Once we have the model, we need to host. So then we learned about one of our hosting options, which was Hugging Face, which we like because it's free, no credit card. RunPod is another one I'll demonstrate later, but RunPod, there's no free playing there. You got to pay them cash up front. But anyway, with Hugging Face, including the lab we did yesterday or last time, we found out how we could smith a code locally using Visual Studio Code, Dockerize it, push the Docker container up to Hugging Face, and ask questions and get answers back. So that gets us to where we are today, which is last time it was it was building a model and hosting it. And today we're taking the approach of so-called white labeling other products with AI. I told you about the vacuum cleaner that I saw at Canadian Tire, which says it's an AI vacuum cleaner. I've been vacuuming rugs for many years without needing AI, but basically within the board, right, within the microprocessor of the board, they're probably, if you look into it, they're doing something to optimize using electricity or something. So what we're doing today is getting Grok APIs, and we're going to wrap Grok APIs up in a web app. And Python, which is our primary language here, Python does not do web applications well. On the other hand, Node.js is one of the top, if you look, do a Google search on top skills employers are looking for, I think it's like number 3 or number 4. It's way up there. So you're learning a little bit of Node.js web application development. So we're just now, where we are right at this second, is building and getting a simple Node, which is JavaScript, web app up and going. And then we're just going to demonstrate we can send it a query and get back a simple response. And then our next step after this will be to layer in our Grok APIs. And this was the stuff we said at the beginning we wanted to talk about. So learn basic Node.js to front end our API application. Learn about the concept of AI white labeling, which is take an existing product and integrate some API calls. So this is not knowledge distillation, right? This is not building your own model. This is using APIs from a frontier model. Claude, Sonnet, Opus, ChatGPT, DeepSeek, Meta. There's about a dozen of them out there. And then we figured out the next step. We said we were going to talk about AI cost engineering because not all AI APIs are created equal. And ChatGPT, which is the best known, is actually one of the more expensive ones. And Grok is actually quite cheap by comparison. And they all give us free API access. So here in class, we don't need a credit card. But you can imagine that if you're at work and your manager or your client asks you about setting up maybe some sort of because you know what we said at the beginning, that the original purpose of web applications was to front end access to SQL databases. What you're going to see, in fact, even within the next year, even at your co-op job in the next couple of months, I predict that the first major commercial utility of AIs is going to be to front end access to the company's documentation system. So if it's a law office, they might, and it would have to be, suitably done with privacy and so on, but they might grant their clients or even people considering hiring that service, you could get directly into their AI model and say, hypothetically, if I had a situation, or a marketing thing, if I had a situation of needing to do marketing for X, Y, and Z, tell me in broad outlines how your company might assist. And then the AI could go and have access to the company's internal records, and it could be set up with guardrails to not give out any confidential information, but it could say, well, dear potential customer, based on your situation, what our company has found works well in the past is whatever Facebook ads, this, that, videos, customer testimonials, and so on. So anyway, if you're doing something that might involve kind of large numbers of complex customer interactions, then even though you say, well, the difference between ChatGPT at 0.15 cent per token and Grok at 0.003 cents a token, that would add up, right? After several months of having customers, large number of customers, giving it complex inference endpoints to deal with, that might not seem like a small amount of money in isolation, but it could amount. And in fact, further on in your lab, I think around page 25, we start talking about this concept of cost engineering and being aware of the cost per token, speed of tokens, and cost per inference. And one of your future, for your midterm, one of your things you're going to get is a question involving doing comparative worksheets for, I'm going to give you some model scorecards and some scenarios, and then you're going to predict based on what a customer may expect to pay over 3 months for using that model. And then finally, and we said this activity is going to stretch into next week as well, because this week we're introducing some foundational stuff, working with Node.js, understanding cost engineering, understanding how to white label integrate APIs into our product. Today is setting up the foundation, and we're going to start setting up our weather app, IntelliWeather. So we're going to make a Node.js web page. User is going to select a city from drop-down list, right? That would be like open weather API. So that's something we might do in a JavaScript class. But the unique thing in this class is we can now ask complex questions, which are going to be parsed out to Grok in the API call. Like, tell me, some fun things I could do with my dog in Toronto this weekend based on the weather. Or if I'm going to city, whatever, some city somewhere, next week, tell me the kind of things I might need to pack or prepare. So now we're seeing that the traditional web application, we talked about this on week 1 when we talked about what are people going to be doing with AI. We talked about the model view controller and how the controller is the logic that you write. And what you guys are going to see over the next couple of years, this is going to be a very big thing. Companies are going to replace their deterministic controller written in objects, because objects are just little if this then that engines, right? You have a calculate method 2 and 2 or an add method 2 and 2, it's always going to give you back 4. You hard code that deterministically. You're going to see the controller being replaced with calls to AI models. All right, so anyway, that's just to bring our thinking back to where we are. So now as we go and make our first simple Node.js web application work, we're doing it with the mindfulness that in the next step, we're going to be layering in the call to open weather API. And then finally, we're going to be layering in the call to Grok, which is one of the big AI models via APIs. And then we're going to do RAG, retrieval augmentation generation, because when we went to Grok at the beginning and we asked Grok directly, we said, tell me things I can do with my dog this weekend based on the weather. Grok said, well, I don't have access to the weather. So retrieval augmentation generation is a process by which we get some data from one source, Open Weather API in this case. We compose a prompt using that, and then we send that prompt to our AI API, and then it sends us back our, and that's how your result. And that's how ChatGPT works, right? ChatGPT is not an AI. ChatGPT is a web page. The AI is the OpenAI Foundation's model server. The ChatGPT is a web page that gets you access and sends back response. And you're learning how to build that right now. So you're building your own ChatGPT, but kind of better than that because ChatGPT does not do RAG, so we're also layering in RAG. All right, so anyway, having said that, let's go and make all that stuff happen. Once again, I'm making a video of this because, and I strongly suggest, before next class on Saturday or something, just go through and redo the whole Node.js thing by itself because you guys haven't seen it before, and it's a good skill you can talk about at your job interviews as well. All right, so let's get back and make this happen now. Our lab book, here we go. So where we were going is, if you go to your main lab book, which is posted up there in the news forum, right, if you need to get back into it. So if you go to page 4, here's a complete self-contained Node.js application designed to just demonstrate some simple Node.js stuff. So we did all of this. We created our project directory. We set up our package JSON and index.js. Now go down here. So go to your package.json and just grab the code starting from here and drop that into your package.json. That is just going to, as we saw, the purpose of package JSON is to be the configuration and controller for your Node.js app. So go ahead and grab that code right there on page 4. And I'm not going to talk too much about how Node works because that would be an entirely separate course, and I want to keep our mental time and attention here focused on building AI apps. But anybody who desires to get more into the Node, right, I've got a lot of good videos. We can make a little bit of time if you have any questions. But suffice it to say, Node was intended to be a very simple, rapid application development environment, right? That's why JavaScript took off, because it is quite simple to use. So let's go and copy that and go to our Visual Studio Code and find your package.json, which is right there in the root, and you can just replace whatever you've got there. Well, actually, yeah, the name and stuff doesn't really matter too much. If you're going to do an npm publish up to npmjs.com, which we will do at the end, and that's going to give you a link that you can put in your resume, your sort of little portfolio of student projects as well. So anyway, just replace this with what's in your lab book. And get rid of, don't have the stuff at the bottom, how it works, because that's not code, that would make an error. Whoops, I got too much in this case. I actually got the code as well. Let's go back and do this again. Yeah, so you just want this little bit right here. And save. Now, let's go and update our index.js, which is the code that runs and makes stuff happen. So there's app.js. So once again, just start up from import. And right down there to the middle of page 7 and drop that into your index.js. And you can go and read more of the details if you want to drill more into what's going on there. All right, looks pretty good. Now, I'm not sure, I don't think you guys have had in this program any HTML. You're probably, maybe in some other courses, right? They're teaching HTML in grade 6 now. So you might have had some exposure, but this is just writing out some HTML to the TCP pipe to render in the user's browser. If you don't know what that means, let's go and demonstrate. So save all and close. No problem, so that's always an encouraging thing. Now here we're going to run this. Oh, I'm still running my index.js from before because of NodeMon. So in your terminal, press Control-C to get back to your command line. And then make sure you're in the right directory. Yeah, there it is, index.js. So run nodemon index.js. Nodemon index.js. Whoops. What did I do wrong? Okay, let me see this here. Well, I'm going to teach you a little bit of quick troubleshooting now. You see, this is not problem with our code. This is actually problems with one of our imports. So path to regex, why would that? Because I did this exact code in another class. Unless there might have been an update to one of the NPM packages, I guess, because I know it's not my code. So let me take a couple of seconds to fix this here. Control C to kill out of that. Yeah, that's in the path to EXP. Okay, I'm going to go and check the doc because that's not our code. There might be some patch there, so just study your lab book for a couple of minutes. Go and read some of the theory stuff we're going to get to in terms of the cost engineering. I will be back. All right, guys, I'm going to kick out the updated code. Then we're going to briefly talk through it. Then we're going to move on to our main thing, which is getting our AI service module enabled. So let's go and do that. So first of all, I'll show what it will look like, and then I'll give you the code to go and make it happen on your own station. So here I've updated the code, and I'll talk through what I updated in a minute. But basically now I have a web server up and running on the specified port, which I think I said port 3000. Yeah. So let's go and check that in a browser. So localhost, because in TCP IP talking, the internet network connections are transmission control protocol, internet protocol, and in TCP IP, localhost is the name of the computer I'm running on, just like it could be Facebook or it could be a numeric address. So if I go to localhost port 3000, welcome to the Corrected Express app. And just to demonstrate something else, because you got to know this stuff, right? I'm going to give you my IP address. So my IP address of this computer, as set by the campus's router when I logged in this morning. If I go to IP config, my IP address is right there, 10.51.204.251. That is the IP address of my computer. So if I drop this in here instead of localhost, now I'm going to paste this up here in a notepad. I want everybody to take a couple of seconds to just demonstrate, right? To just I want you to go and do this in your browser on your computer, HTTP. Go and put in that 10.51.204.251, and then you should observe that you're seeing this page that I'm running. Because we're going to do some stuff with this later on. We're going to make some distributed apps, and in that case, everybody is going to be sharing their IP address, and we're going to do a little service-oriented architecture in which people's computers are going to connect to other nodes on the network. So this is to just expose your thinking to this. So everybody is now able to see the server running on my computer. Yeah? Yeah, it is. All right, so now let me share the updated code so you can go and get it running on your own station. So I'll update this in the, and if you're curious about what I did, I dropped some documentation in there. So I will put this into your lab book. The site's not working. Okay, one step at a time. Let me, you have like a firewall or something going? Because it should be working, right? It's all. Oh, the only other way, maybe not. If you're on your phone or something, if you're going to your 3G, like if you have to be connected to the campus's Wi-Fi network, because that's what my laptop is on. One reason that it would not be available if you were connected to some other network, maybe like Rogers or Fido or something. Well, let me just kick out the code. We'll troubleshoot that in a minute. So I'm going to call this app.js v2, just version 2. So if you just go and hit reload in your browser and you go to page 5, and I'm going to give you like 1 minute of lab time or something. Just copy this, and you need to get this going because in a couple of minutes we're going to be building on top of this. We're going to be adding in the AI stuff. So your kind of basic web server needs to be working so you're going to be able to have a good framework later on to build on top. So everybody reload this. Make sure you're seeing app.js v2 and dump this into your app.js file and reload, and then make sure that you can do node app.js, and you should now be seeing something like this. So somebody was saying they were getting a site not working or not loading thing. It's working now? Yeah. So anyway, it's working. So now you also have to be on port 3000 because port 3000 is what my Express.js is serving on. So I'll give you 1 minute to catch up. Make sure you're able to get to going on this on localhost. And where we're going to go at the end, we will not get to this week, but next week we're going to go to railway.com, which is a website that lets you for free without a credit card. You're going to make an account. You're going to Dockerize your Express API application. You're going to upload it to here. Then you'll get a URL you can put in your LinkedIn and your resume so employers can, take a look and see an example of your work. All right, so I'll give everybody a couple of seconds to just check that, study it, read through the how it works documentation, and then we'll carry on to folding in our Open Weather API key and our Grok API key. I'll give you a minute to do that. So who is there anybody who has not gotten it to run locally? We're all good? All right. Now step 2, we're going to take our index.js. We're going to take our first Express.js web app, and we're going to fold it in so it can make calls out, API calls to the Open Weather API service. So you can you can make a web form and you can say I want the weather in, I don't know, whatever, Hamilton or something, and then it'll make a call out to that and it'll come back and display the weather on your web page. We're not making involvement with Grok API yet. We're not AI enabling it yet, but we're at least demonstrating our knowledge of how to connect to this, to RAG, bringing the retrieval augmentation generation connection to the weather. So that lab workbook is available right here. Make sure I've kicked that out. So I'll drop the link in your made lab book for today. So actually the main thing that we're building up to is starting here on page 8. That is our thing which ties it all together. What we're doing now is building up the little pieces, right? The knowledge of Node.js, the knowledge of the Open Weather API calls. And then next we're going to see how to make a Grok API. Once we've got those 3 pieces in place, then we're going to go and put it all together. And then at the end of that, we're going to deploy that out to Railway. And then finally, your final activity for next week will be to make a LinkedIn blog article, journaling and reflecting on all the things you've learned, kicking out your links for your potential future employers to see, giving yourself some social proof that you've actually done it, as well as the most valuable thing is when you journal and reflect on something by writing a blog article. That's why I write like 10 blogs a week. It helps me process what I'm learning. It locks in. It's a hack. It's called metacognition. When you think about what you're thinking, then you lock your learning in faster. All right, so this is where we got so far. So this was page 6 and 7 was getting our little demo Express web app up going. So you can now host a simple Express.js web app. So next steps, let's connect the OpenWeather API call into it. And I posted right there. So if you go to the middle of page 7, you're going to see this Coda document, Node.js app with API calls to Open Mateo Weather Service. So ask everybody to go over there now and get that, and then just open up that notebook, and then we're just going to go and do it. Right, so everybody now is in this notebook. You're all seeing that. Again, you're going to need to reload this web page to see that. It's on page 7. So is everybody now looking at this Node.js app lab book? Yeah, okay, well, some of you would think are still finding it, so I'll give you a minute to catch up on that. So this guide provides a complete, ready-to-run Node.js app using Express. It creates a simple web page. Now, another element we're layering in now, because you guys who haven't had web application development before, but you're probably familiar with the fact that a web page can have forms. Forms let user enter information, content into fields, and in our case, our content is going to be what we're going to send out to our API call. When a user selects a city, the application fetches and displays the current weather from the Open Mateo API. So create a project directory. You can just reuse the same directory you've had. You don't have to change anything for right now. Create files. So we've got package.json and app.js, right? Index.js, doesn't matter what it's called, so we'll just reuse our index.js. Now we're going to make a new folder called views, and why we're going to do that will become clear in a couple of minutes. So right now, everybody please go to your Visual Studio Code, and we're going to practice our DevOps skills, which means we're going to practice some command line stuff to make directories, right? So go over to your Visual Studio Code. First of all, if you're running your app still, press Control-C to kill that process. CLS to clear the screen, dir, make sure you're in your root. The simplest way in Node to find the root, it's wherever the package.json is. Right, so I'm not sharing my screen here. Let me go and redo that. Yeah, so once again, what I was saying here is that's the lab book we're in, which is Coda and so on, which is the link in your other notebook, so everybody is there. So the first thing we want to do now is make a folder called views. So we're going to go to our Visual Studio Code. Make sure you're in your root directory, which is where your package.json is. And then you're going to do mkdir for make directory. And you're going to call it views. All right, so we did step 3. Inside the views folder, create a file called index.ejs. So you can go over here in your Visual Studio Code file manager, views. Make sure you highlight that directory and click on the new file smart icon and call it index.ejs. So you've got that file, so that's good. You've got that. Make sure you save and close everything. Now, copy and paste the code from below into the corresponding files. So number one, package JSON, let's update it as so. So get your package JSON and dump it into here, package.json, erase whatever's there. All right, looks pretty good. So the name is whatever is going to be the name of your app. If you do npm publish to push it up to npmjs.com, the version just is the version number. So if somebody later on, if somebody installed your app using npm install, and then later you bumped it up to version 1.01 or something, their npm environment would look at the version they have. Okay, I have 1.0.0. 1.0.1 is currently available, so it would know from there that it should go and pull the update. Type module, that has to do with the npmjs.com modules import system. Scripts are just commands, so if I go to npm and say start, it would run node app, which is actually index in our case. So I'll change that to index.js. And keywords, if somebody were to go and search on npmjs.com, and then if your package JSON matched one of those keywords, like AI weather app, for example, then it would go and match on that. Dependencies, so these are the node modules that it's going to make sure it has access to the first time it runs. And that's about it. All right, so that's our package JSON. Next, we're going to go to app.js, which is the controller. It's the program where all the core logic is. Are you guys okay back there? Questions? Can I help with? Yeah? Tell me the question, I'll answer it. All right. So let's go and grab this code starting from import express as we did in our first program. Now here is going to be another package called node fetch, and we're not going to have as much time, right? I mean, I'd love to spend a much longer time on Node.js, but if you desire to sort of self-educate, learn more about it by yourself, you can always go to npmjs.com and you can just search and read the documentation of these packages. All of the job ads you're going to look at, they all say the same thing, which is we want candidates who are able to teach themselves new technologies quickly. So if the employer asks you, well, say, can you give me an example of where you had to learn a new technology quickly? Say, yeah, in my AI class, we had to learn Node.js to build front ends to our AI apps. And we had to pretty much teach that to ourselves, studying the documentation on npmjs.com. So use it as a kind of a learning story to give some substantiation to demonstrate that you're acquiring the skill of teaching yourself this stuff. So let's go and look at what Node Fetch has to say for itself. It just basically, remember we talked about one of our learning outcomes for today is APIs. So Node Fetch is a Node library that lets you work with APIs. So in this case, the Open Weather API, we have the API formulations because we looked at the documentation stuff on the Open Weather site. Fetch is actually the Node code that lets you open a socket to another server. An API, by the way, is just a method running on somebody else's server. So if I'm writing a Java or a JavaScript program and I have a class and I call a method on that class living in my own runtime, that's just a method call. It doesn't have a special name. But if you're running a Node.js environment and you give me your IP address and I want to run a method on a class living in your runtime, that's called an API. That's what you do every time you go to ChatGPT, right? If you're just using the ChatGPT webpage, you don't do it explicitly, but when you type in a prompt, what's happening behind the scenes is what we're doing right now. There is going to be some JavaScript in that webpage That JavaScript is going to take your prompt from the text box on the page where you type your prompt. It's going to wrap it up in a fetch statement. It's going to dispatch that fetch to the Open API model server, which is going to run, send back the response as a JSON response, and then your web page is going to display that, and that's how you see the answer to your query. So you're now actually taking apart. I remember when I was a kid, we used to spend our weekends watching our fathers, right? The thing guys did back then, they like take a car apart and put it back together again. I don't know, I guess they like to do that. But that was a very good kind of mental training for me to understand this stuff, because that's how you learn technology, right? You take it apart and then you put it back together, you make a new one by yourself, and then you get a lot of insight into the details of how the different gears mesh up with each other. All right, so anyway, that's node fetch. That's why we're going to be using that. Question? Oh yeah, if you have a co-op job, yeah, if you need to. So I'm recording this. I will post this video up later, and we're going to go over it again next week when we. So how many people are going for co-op job? Well, if you need to go, nobody told. Okay, well, you need to go. Go. Don't be late. They say you should always be 7 minutes early for a job interview. I don't know who came up with that number, but yeah, be 7 minutes early. Good. It is in the Here, I'll show you. If you go into the Moodle thing, there's the what do you call it? The accountability schedule. We talked about it on week 1, but I'll quickly show it to you again. So just go to our class Moodle page, and there's a document there. It's July 3rd. The midterm is July 3rd, which is when the assignment is due. But you can get all the dates for everything from here. I'll show you. When is your co-op interview thing, by the way? Oh, the job. Oh, yeah, the job fair. Okay, well, anyway. Yeah, so just go to our Moodle page. So you guys have prepped, right? You've done research on the employers who are there, and you all have a knowledge of their companies. Who are going to be the companies presenting there? I know who's there because I read the Moodle page. Did you read it? You should have done at least a little bit of background research on all of them. Why should I hire you? Why are you laughing? You know from now there's going to be 5 questions they're going to ask you. Tell me about yourself, what you know about this position, what you know about the company, what you know about the industry, and why should I hire you? So you're going to a job fair. You don't have a preparation for that answer that question. You just made that up right now, didn't you? So in general, the answer is gonna. Were you here in the second week when we talked about this stuff? Well, Mr. Interviewer, thank you for the question. As you know, I'm a recent graduate of Cestar College in my program of study there. Program of study, we studied an extensive amount of technology related to AI, DevOps, and data analytics. And because your company does X, Y, and Z, fill in the blanks, and because your company is about to undertake a new initiative in area so and so, which you know because you did research on the company, and therefore then you connect the dots. You say my training in DevOps would make me an excellent fit for your requirement to hire new graduates who are capable of doing whatever it is they say they're going to do. All right, so anyway, once you're in your Moodle page, if you go here to evaluation timetable, yeah, go. But anyway, that's the answer to your question. If you go there, it's July 3rd. It is in the news forum. I'll upload the video because that's not there yet. Is there anybody? So the rest of you guys are all staying. All right, so you guys go. Good luck. Let me know how it works out. Right, if you get work, as they say. And the rest of you guys, we've been going for about an hour. Is it okay if I give them a break? All right, guys, go and take your break until 11:10, and then we'll pick it up with this. All right, everybody, get your screen share going. Do you see it there? AML 3304, the hardcore troop song. Everybody got that? Let's go. And go. And she's going to lead. So she lead, you follow. Let's go. Left, right, AML 3304. I'll say it first, then you repeat. Maybe you need a little leadership here. Go. I can't hear you. Louder. It's not. It should be on your screen share. It's not. Just look on my screen share thing. Okay, go. She's gonna read the she'll read, and then you guys repeat. Go from verse 1. Left, right, AML 3304. You guys don't have any class spirit. Come on, let's show me some spirit here. We're the class that train for more. Neural nets and data flows. Through the code, our knowledge grows. AR hardcore, that's our name. Building models, that's our game. Rain or shine, we debug the line, making algorithms work just fine. Up the hill with heavy packs, GPUs strapped on our backs. Down the valley, through the stream, training models with our team. We don't quit, we don't stop, pushing that accuracy to the top. In the lab or in the field, machine learning is our shield. From the classroom to the cloud, AML soldiers strong and proud, transformers, CNNs, and more. We're the mighty 3304. Everywhere we code and fight, making AI that gets it right. We're the future, we're the best. AI hardcore beats the rest. Who are we? AI hardcore. What's our class? 3304. Can't stop us, no sir, no. We build AI wherever we go. Thank you. That's okay. Well, I think once they're in front of the group, they're going to be under a little bit more emotional pressure. So, anyway, let's carry on with our. You thought about what? Well, that helps you, whatever works for you. Anyway, your song is in the news forum, so make sure you get it by week 11 or so. We'll expect everybody to just be able to sing it by route, like by memory, and it'll be about 50% of your final project mark, so make sure you get it. All right, let's carry on. All right, guys, let's carry on with our lab. So before the break now, we were talking about sort of how it's going to work. And let's see where we left off here. So going back to your Visual Studio Code, what we have so far is, I think we did, yeah, we updated the package.json. So our next step now is going to be to go and update our index.js, which is our logic, right? So yeah, what we had before was just our sort of starter. So go and erase whatever's in your index.js now, and let's go and see the updated code. So that is available here on page. Well, actually, this is a coder document. It doesn't have page. But just go and search for this is the code of the application, right? App.js, and go and grab it starting from import express from the express package. So grab that stuff. Put it there. And dump that into your index.js. And save. See that one right there in your file explorer on the left, sort of the left area of the screen. If you see the one above your file explorer, that just lets you know you have an unsaved file. So go ahead and say save all. And you can check your problems tab, so you'll see you don't have any problems, so that's good. So I'll give everybody a couple of seconds to catch up on that. And I know that you don't really know Node.js, right? It's a new thing. We'll come back and address it a little bit each day in future classes to amp ourselves up more. But for right now, just drop this code in there. This is just a wrapper. It's a packaging. The thing we're going to be concentrating on learning and doing is our the part that works with the Grok API calls. Right, so once you get your index.js, just make sure you pull the door shut all the way behind you. Oh, it is. Thank you very much. So go now and make index.ejs. So grab that. Don't get the XML part. That's just telling you that it's XML code. Start from doc type. And grab that. And dump that over here. And if you need, I can go and do the whole thing again from start if we need to see it. So grab your index.ejs file and paste that in there. And save. So this is HTML, which you might not have seen HTML before, but that's what it is. So there we're going to see, and we're going to talk through this. Once we get it working, we'll talk through it. We'll understand what's going on. And then the final step will be to layer in our call to Grok API. And that's going to be a little bit, again, by noon, we're not going to finish this whole thing. But I would like that by the end of today's class, at least we've seen how to get a Grok API. And then we'll be set up next week to make our Intella weather app and see how to deploy it to Railway. So go and catch yourself up on that. Once again, I'm making a screencast video of this. I'll kick it up to YouTube at the end. And you know what you want, but if what you want is to actually go out there and speak with confidence in front of an employer, confidence is going to come from the practice of doing things. And this is a very good practice you can do to make yourself feel stronger when you're out there in the field. All right, so let me save everything here. Right, so go and work on that. I'm going to give you 3 or 4 minutes to get all that stuff caught up. Oh, now when I try to run it, you see there was certain things I didn't import. For example, I have Express from before, but I did not do npm install node fetch. So I'm going to control C my way out of this program to end that process, and I'll do npm install node fetch, because I can tell from right there, my error message, it said it couldn't find node fetch. And now we can go and try rerunning our index.js. All right, well, now it's running. Let's see if it's working. So let's go to localhost 3000. So now let's choose a city. Sao Paulo in Brazil. Pretty nice place. I'd like to go there. So let's go and hit get weather. And hopefully, if we've done everything right, so you guys who just joined us, I'll show you again, right? Because when you're seeing new stuff for the first time, generally you need to see it at least 3 times. First time, your brain is just getting familiar to the patterns. Second time, you're making it work, but perhaps not really understanding what you've done. Then you do it a third time. Your brain is already knowing what to expect, and that little bit of friction or that little bit of sort of cognitive sort of fluff that's in your brain, like a little bit of, Vaseline or something on a camera lens, it makes it hard to focus. But once you see it the third time, then you can get more clarity, then you can get understanding. So I'm going to go ahead and click my Get Weather button. And now it's telling me what the weather is in Sao Paulo. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes, and I know a couple of guys joined us late, so I'm going to go and do this whole thing again. And plus, we have the screen recording. So what we did was start off on our Visual Studio Code project, the one we made from beginning of class. And then we went over here to our lab book. And we updated our package.json. So if you've not yet done so, go and get your updated package.json and copy that. And dump that into your package.json editor file right there. So open package.json, erase whatever is there, and then paste in that new code. And then go to app.js. And again, same pattern, grab all the code there, starting from import Express from Express. And those are all the cities we have available. So get your code for app.js and dump it into here. Index.js, right? So erase that and dump the new code in. Finally, we made a views folder, and this is a Node.js thing. This is called page template literals. But anyway, just go to index.ejs, right? So that's a Node.js thing that lets you make page partials. Not concentrating so much on the Node stuff right now. Let's stay focused on the API calls. So go here now to step 3, views index EJS. This EJS template file, and if you want more information on it, best thing to do is just go and read your documentation in npmjs.com. This EJS template file creates the HTML structure for the front end and gives us a form to select a city and an area to display the weather results. So go and select all of that code, dump it into here. Now, one thing you need to do comparing to when we did this before we were not using node fetch. So do npm install node fetch. And once you've got all of that up and going, then just run it. And now your app should be running like this. And now the next thing we're going to do in the final step, which we probably, I don't know, we might get it done in the next half hour, at least we'll get started. Next step after this is to hook ourselves up with a Grok API. So we're going to see how to get a Grok API key. And then we're going to add to our HTML form. So I can then have, just like in ChatGPT, I can have a text box, I can type a question, like if I'm going to Sao Paulo, tell me based on the current weather 3 fun things I could do in Sao Paulo. Right, so this now concludes our sort of little breakaway lab. So we were working on our main lab book. We looked at a separate lab book to teach us how to use the API facilities of this Open Weather Service, Open Meteo Weather Service. Let's see if they're actually accurate. Let's ask for Toronto because we can compare with what's really going on here. Clear sky, 8. Yeah, that looks pretty accurate. I'd say that's correct. All right, is there anybody who does not have this on their screen yet? Anybody wants another 3 or 4 minutes to get caught up? All right, I'll give you another 4 minutes to catch up on this, then we'll continue. I don't know, it's kind of cool, and if you're going to this job interview, it might help you out with that. So, let me turn my screen sharing back on. So you can see here they're giving you the names of some of the companies that are going to be there. So I'm just going to take IPG Media Brands as an example. So I'm going to go to Twitter, and Twitter is actually, you may have heard of a guy named Elon Musk. He's been having some fights with Donald Trump lately, but that's another story. But Musk owns Twitter, and he also created his own AI model, which is called Grok, which in my opinion, I think Grok is the most powerful and versatile AI model in the world currently. And he also lets us use his AI APIs for free. Well, the guy's the second richest man in the world, so he probably doesn't need our money. But if you go to Twitter, which is x.com, and you go to Grok, and this is actually a very amazing search engine. Why? Because it has access to all the stuff on Twitter. And people tell Twitter things they won't tell their husband or wife. But anyway, so I'm just going to go and grab one of these companies now. IPG Media Brands Toronto. So for Lambton, college students going to a career fair for this company. Advise on or provide a report on current in the news items which they can talk about to demonstrate their knowledge of current industry trends. So it's the Media and Marketing Solutions division of Interpublic Group, global leader in advertising and marketing, headquartered in Toronto. What they do, right? So one of the questions you would be asked about in an interview is what you know about our company. Well, there's all the stuff you can talk about. How to impress IPG Media Brands interviewers to stand out. Lambton College students should focus on preparation, professionalism, alignment. Here, actionable tips. Research the company, understand their brands, highlight your knowledge, be familiar with the residency program tailored for recent graduates. Right, so here's stuff you can do now. Demonstrate your cultural fit. Emphasize your unique background, show enthusiasm, dress and act professionally, follow up. State, current, in the news, I guess topics or in the news events which students should demonstrate and which job applicants. should demonstrate a knowledge of. So you guys see what the purpose of this is, right? I'm showing you how to use the Grok search engine available through x.com and other search engines like ChatGPT. Well, one difference with Grok is it has access to all the stuff in X, right? It has access to all these conversations and stuff people talk about. So they've made a partnership with T-Mobile, right? If you go into the job interview and you demonstrate that you've done this research, I would say that would be pretty impressive. I read about your T-Mobile partnership, how it leverages first-party data to create targeted campaigns. I'm excited about how IPG uses it. In fact, one of the things I was doing in this class towards the end, we used to do a case study on Starbucks Deep Brew AI and how it does mass personalization. I think I'm going to make a case study based on this, just based on what I'm seeing here. So this is going to be one of our case studies in a future week. And if you want to talk specifically about stuff going on in Toronto, right here's some stuff. Anyway, I thought that was pretty cool. I was fooling around with this in another context yesterday, and and I think that would be a pretty impressive things to talk about in terms of demonstrating to the employer, to the interviewer, that you have some interest in this company and in this field. So anyway, let's just start on this lab. We'll start taking a look at it, then we'll pick it up from here next week. So here's an update to our current Node app, demonstrating retrieval augmented generation by integrating the Grok API. This Node and Express app fetches real-time weather data from OpenMeteo and then uses that data to augment the user's prompt. This augmented prompt is then sent to the Grok API to generate context-aware travel recommendations. So how retrieval augmentation generation works. This application follows a classic RAG pattern. User input, the user selects a city from the dropdown and enters a prompt in the text box. Suggest fun activities. The server first calls the OpenMeteo API to retrieve the current weather conditions for the specified city. This is the retrieval step. Augment, the server then combines the retrieved weather data with the user's original prompt to create a new, more detailed prompt. For example, based on the following conditions in area, answer my request, suggest some fun activities. This is the augmentation step. Generate, this highly detailed augmented prompt is then sent to the Grok API, which uses the weather context to provide a highly relevant answer. This is the generation step. The final web page shows both the retrieved weather data and Grok's intelligent weather-aware recommendations. Setup and instructions. Follow these steps to get the application running on your local machine. Let's just do this much. For right now, because a bunch of people aren't here anyway, let's just get our Grok API key, and then the rest of it we'll do next week. We'll pick it up from here. So the Grok API key is in public beta with a free tier of $25 in monthly credits. No credit card is required to sign up. And there is some more, if you want, right, you can go and read more citations on that. So developers can build their own can build upon Grok's foundational model. So the API is now available, giving developers programmatic access to the Grok series of models. To get started, head to console.x.ai to set up an account. To learn more about our API, check the documentation at docs.x.ai. So everybody join me over on console.x.ai. And go ahead and sign in. I'm already signed in, so you probably don't have an account there. So get yourself signed up with an account. Navigate to the API keys section, create a new security key, copy the key, I don't know, email it to yourself or something, because after you initially get it, you won't be able to see it again. So find the API keys section. There it is. And there's one key I made from before. So now you click on, I'm not going to make it right now because I'm going to forget what it is before next week, but click on create API key, give it some name, and pretty much that's it, save, and then you're going to get this alphanumeric string. Just copy that and save it somewhere. All right, guys, it's almost noon, so we're going to wrap up the class now. So take off or hang around here if you want, or go to the career fair. We will pick it up from here next week.